Hey everybody, this is Gainer Milky, and this is the Conscious Success Plan where we're upskilling for life. And today I'm going to talk about the L in our life model, which is love, and then we have identity, family, and enterprise. So let's start with love, which is always a good place to begin. And I think one of the things I wanted to talk about is the idea of ambient grief, but also um, duality when it comes to love. And I have a friend who lost her husband recently, and that is its own type of grief because the person is no longer here, but obviously they had walked a long path, or I shouldn't say obviously, but they had walked a long path and a good life together. And so there's a grief. I know my friend said she always thought she would go first, and it didn't turn out that way. So she's luckily quite, as she says, well resourced with a community and also the knowledge of how to process grief, which doesn't make it easier. Myself, I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum where um, I actually heard this term from Dr. Carrie McAvoy talking about the ambient grief that goes along with losing somebody, whether it's a friend or a lover, and the person's still there, but you have to kind of disassociate for different reasons. And I think there is, a different type of grief because you're grieving what you thought the relationship was or what it could have been, but what um, actually it is, which cannot be reconciled for whatever reason. So I think that's an interesting idea in two different types of grief, kind of the bereavement grief and then the ambient grief, but also the duality in ambient grief, where you're still processing the memories of there were good things and not good things, especially in a relationship that doesn't work out for whatever reason. And Dr. McAvoy talks about it in terms of the narcissistic relationship and, people who are manipulative and try to have power and control in a relationship that's toxic. So you've got people who are basically predatory in nature, trying to get what they want, but presenting themselves in one way to hook you, and then, not being that person wholly. They kind of vacillate between the two, which is where the trauma bonds come in. And I did a video on that, but that's kind of a reflection on love because love we tend to idealize in culture as always being positive, but that's really the superficial kind of love. A real deep love is one that has the best interests of both people at heart. And I believe my friend who's grieving her husband definitely had that. And, I think she can reflect with some degree of comfort that, her husband partner was such a good spirit and they had a really good life together. And unfortunately, he was almost 90. Our bodies, only last so long. So it's really, really sad. And there's so much good to process. And then it's really just sad that the person's not there anymore in ambient grief. Person's still there, and maybe you're grieving what the loss was to yourself in terms of what you had to do to survive a relationship that can no longer be active. Um, And that's just a whole different level. And I think, expressing it in art or in words or in writing, um, and allowing yourself to walk through the feelings will allow you to process it and kind of leave it behind. So, definitely want to try to take away what you can from the idea of what you wanted the love to be and what was missing, and what was within you that was missing, and what were you looking for in the love. That's something that you could journal about as well. So that's a little conscious success reflection on love and grief and duality and processing what our innate human ability to create love with another person, to feel love with another person, but to be love with another person. And oftentimes in a relationship gone wrong, whether it's a friend, a family member, or romantic partner, it's the being of love that's missing. And if somebody cannot be love, then it's unlikely that acting as if is going to lead to long-term success. So, I hope this was helpful if you're dealing with ambient grief or the ending of a relationship where the person is still there and you have to navigate around that, whether you choose to not interact with them or interact with them in a limited way. Say it's a family member or a coworker, somebody you need to see at work. But if you can be love, because we're never going to be able to rid the world of toxic people, manipulators, or predators, or people who are trying to take advantage of us. We just need to learn to better recognize the signs and not invest our love where it's not going to be fully, consciously, deeply, and um, I guess I would also say altruistically applied or returned. So hopefully this was helpful, and I'll be dropping some more videos on different aspects of love, and hopefully the next one will be a little bit more uplifting and not kind of discussing all of this grief, because love will prevail if we allow it to flow through us and be conscious of it.